Welcome to a very new podcast with a couple chaplains here at Rutgers University. We're calling this Being Spiritual at RU. So
We are.
we are in your facility. You want to tell us? I mean, most people probably know about it, but
Yeah, we're here at the Canterbury House. This is our chapel, which once upon a time was a two-car garage. We renovated it into this worship space. You can see some of the icons and things in the background. So it's only a few years old, but getting a lot of good use.
great. We thought we'd come on here. We know this is a popular kind of platform, podcasting, video logging to get messages across. As two Christian chaplains here on campus, just a heart for students and exploring faith and spirituality. And so we thought we would do this and see how it goes. Today we're going to talk about a few things. One, just kind of our thoughts and reflections. You know, the elections happened, and many of us are processing that in different ways. And I know a lot of us are struggling with it. I know for me, just speaking for myself, just the fact that Christians, it seems by and large, are the ones that got a racist or this specifically, we'll trade racist for refugees to elected in office over helping refugees. Bigotry towards the LGBTQI community and all of that. It's been heart wrenching to see Christians be so unloving and choose someone so unloving. And so I've been kind of spinning. I don't know about you, Scott, like where you've been at personally with it all.
Yeah, I'm having flashbacks to 2016. I just started here at Rutgers, and that spring, and so the fall, of course, was the election. And just like this time, although we should have learned our lesson, I think, I know I was very optimistic, which is probably a problem for me. But
Yeah.
In 2016, it was just such a shock. I think people were in such shock, and the university really reached out for listening sessions and just doing things that, because students were very engaged in that election. I don't know that they weren't engaged in this election, but our processing spaces haven't been in demand like they were back then.
Mm.
And basically, we've agreed that come January, when stuff starts hitting the fan, we're going to need to. That's when we'll probably be needed, and when protests start happening, when things. Who knows where things are going to go, but that's probably when we're going to need more spiritual support.
Yeah, I think as I reflect on it, once I'm hearing like these mass deportations on day one, I think you might have family or friends or maybe even yourself that's like maybe fearing that. I know, speak for myself and Scott, I think you agree that hopefully we can be a safe space. Hopefully the Canterbury House can be a safe space. I pastor a church down the street from here in Milltown that certainly will be a place that if you fear and you need a place to go, our doors are open. So we want you to know that. And it's very real thing. And yeah, we're here to help you process. And so this is part of the reason for this podcast as well, to help to process some of that. Yeah, I think too, like as I've been talking with students, I mean, we haven't had a lot of students process, but it feels like I've had a lot of conversations with students over the last few weeks in this building and other places about the election and its ramifications. I don't know if Scott, if you have any thoughts like of ways students can process to kind of internally and like deal with kind of some of those fears or anxieties that might come up.
Right.
Any like tools or helpful tips?
Well, I think, as we often say, all feelings are legitimate. All emotional reactions are legitimate. The issue becomes when those reactions can become problematic for others and problematic for the person themselves. Say they're in a rage, or they're feeling, so desperate, they get suicidal. Obviously, that's when we feel the need to step in and do some direct intervention. But I think just basically legitimizing it and telling them what they're feeling is fine, is good, and help them work through that. If they want to move on from that, some people may be angry for a long time, and that's appropriate too. But again, it's helping them to react to their own feelings. What are you going to do with this anger? What are you going to do with this depression, or this despair, or I'm not hearing a lot of, at least people that I deal with, say, what am I do with all this hope? Because I don't think there's a lot of hope right now.
No.
But yeah, once January comes and I think things start, we're going to start seeing what's ahead of us. That's when we're really going to need to be present and be ready for, just whatever comes. And that's the thing. We don't know what's coming. And students will react differently. Not everybody is in the same place at the same time. And that's okay. But it's chaotic from a spiritual standpoint, or whatever, to say, can't we all just sort of be in the same place? But no, we can't, because people are processing it differently. So we need to be ready. And, a lot of that faith comes in for us even to say, trusting in the ultimate goodness of God and God's people, that we will come through this hopefully stronger and hopefully more empathetic, more compassionate, and ready to be a positive presence in the world. I think the church currently, and the big church, it currently is showing itself to be a problem for the world. But of course, that's my opinion. But we'd like to see the church actually do what Jesus called us to do. So,
Yeah, that's a good point. And it makes me like when I'm going through something like stressful. I mean, there are times where I make mistakes and I lash out my anger in ways that I probably shouldn't. I think we all, as humans, will do that at times. Um, but I think one of the things that helps me is having kind of an outlet where I can clear my mind, whether that's exercise or reading a book,
right.
or whatever that is. For you, I think that's important that you have those things, that you're not always thinking about this 24/7, right? Because we have these devices that we have access to all the information that possibly we could want, and so I think as a student, I would encourage you to kind of find ways to clear your head and
and stop doom scrolling, whatever, because it's so easy to just get mired and unable to break free of news coverage, whatever it is, like you said, or just being angry. There's a strange satisfaction in that. And it's easy to get stuck there. But when Thanksgiving is upon us and the holidays are upon us, what are you going to do if your family, like
my family,
don't agree? How do we coexist? We talk about that a lot in more progressive circles, the coexist sign. How are we going to coexist when there's I really clearly believe, this is my optimistic side coming out again, that people simply don't understand what's at stake. And that's what I pray. That's what I hope, because I hope they're not being deliberate. Some of them are, but I know some really, I would say, well-meaning Christians and others who say some really hurtful things. And I think I heard it said, and I believe it, that this election has shown a huge lack of empathy amongst Americans, and I'd say American Christians. So modeling empathy can be another way, I think, that spiritual leadership can help. But being present with, like I said, with students, no matter where they are.
Yeah, that's a great point about the empathy thing. I think that's been the most heart wrenching is watching people be so unlike Jesus
Mm.
during this time. I mean, even if, you know, you're a Republican and you voted for Trump and you just voted for Trump because you're a Republican, like the language, like you said, like I've been, throwing some very hateful and hurtful things from Christians that look so much unlike Jesus. I mean, even if you take the Trump side out of it, just like the ego in victory has been disheartening, and then you add the Trump layer into it, that makes it even, I think, worse.
Right.
And so, yeah, and we both kind of looked up to a guy who wanted to talk about this too, like Tony Campolo, who passed away recently.
Yesterday.
Yesterday, yeah. And he was someone that, for me at least, pointed me to Jesus and showed me who Jesus was. I remember as a young student, and college student, is really where Tony Campolo had a lot of effect on me with his stories of how to love and serve community like Jesus did. And so, it's interesting that somebody like that who was so passionate about pointing the church to Jesus passed at a time that the church looks so much unlike Jesus. It's kind of a weird thing that, like, it's like, wow, one of the leaders of the church is gone, who we would, his voice would be needed now. And
Absolutely.
so, I don't know if you have thoughts on.
Yeah. We were talking earlier. I got a chance to hear Jim Wallace last week, and post-election, and he was talking. He's another sort of very similar to Tony in a lot of ways, a lot of the same history, and they were part of a group called Evangelicals for Social Action back in the day. They were considered liberal evangelicals, but I'm pretty sure most of them have left the term evangelical behind because they just are tired of being lumped together. And they've seen it all pretty much. They've been through a lot of fights. And, I think those who are still with us, Jim Wallace included, we can thank them. We can learn from them. Sorry, cat interference. I'm going to put them out. But the
mascot for the show.
Right. We've got two very affectionate, friendly cats. So a new generation needs to step up, and people have been stepping up. But I mean, Tony Campolo's death tells me the time has really come for us to be counting our own costs. I think Shane Claiborne is a great example of somebody who's come in their wake, sort of a Gen Xer, in the wake of the Warriors or baby boomers, whatever they were. Not able to. Weber's another person I think has really taken some stands. But yeah, we've got to recognize that they aren't here to do the work anymore. We've got to do the work.
Yeah, it's left to us, and we stand on the shoulders of guys like Campolo, and who meant a lot to Scott and I. Mm-hmm. And so we want to take that forward, and we want to encourage you. It's your task as well to look and live like Jesus and be empathetic and love and care. And I think that's what we can do. Like, if we look around and we see like no hope, but we can do the next right thing, the next loving thing, in our world.
Yep.
And I think that's our call right now. And then I think as leaders, as Scott and I lead in ministry, like this revealed, I like you, Scott, was very hopeful that things had changed and shifted a bit. I knew they hadn't shifted completely, but a bit more than what was shown. And now it's just the reality of where things actually stand in our Christian faith with a lot of people. And so now we know as leaders what we've got, our job ahead of us, which is not going to be easy.
Right. And I heard someone say, we need to know the truth, even if it's painful. Mm. That a lot of Americans feel that way, including many, many, many millions, I guess, of Christians do, and support this potentially ruinous and just inhumane treatment of people. It happened before, and it's bound to happen again. So, yeah, I think we are. Yes, leaders are we're seeing how dire some of this is. And, I said this way back when, but I think it's true now as ever. Obviously, we don't know the future, but I have no sense of the future at this point. What's likely to happen? I think in the past, I think there was always this sense of, well, there'll be a little bit right and left, kind of tossling and things and movement. But this could be a hard right turn, for a lot of people, and it could be a very scary time. So,
Yeah, you're right. But know that we're here for you. We're allies.
absolutely. Yeah.
And today is Transgender Remembrance Day.
Mhm.
And so we want to remember those who they have either taken their life or going through difficult times and feel like that, feel depressed or can't feel like they can't be themselves.
And especially those who have been murdered.
Yeah.
And the list of murder victims is typically trans women of color are those who are targeted. And we're gathering tonight in New Brunswick for a thing, and then tomorrow night at the Social Justice Center at Rutgers, we're going to gather, light candles, and light a candle in the darkness, as they say. And it's a scary time for trans people.
Yeah.
And just to think all that could potentially happen. But I think this, like you were saying earlier, this is when we need to reassure each other and just strengthen our ties with each other. And that's because we will, as the old saying goes, if we don't stand together, we'll hang separately. And that's pretty bleak, but I think it's unfortunately pretty accurate. We need to be allies for each other. And
I like that line. We need to stand with each other or be hanged by ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hang separately.
Separately.
I think it goes back to the American Civil War. So
yeah. No,
but
I was immediately thinking of that.
We have to stand together.
Yeah.
And
yeah, that's sad. And I mean, Trump. Well, they said, even the Democratic strategists said the greatest political ad of all time was the transgender ad, the anti-transgender ad that Trump ran.
Right.
And so I think today is a timely day for us as the church, as those who, I guess, follow Jesus's way of love and care and empathy, to remember that, to not forget that they were attacked in this election. Brutally,
directly. It
Yeah.
wasn't subtle. It was
direct.
Yeah.
So, so light a candle if you can't come out to any of this stuff, but spend some time remembering.
You can find their names online if you check it out. Look for a list of Trans Day of Remembrance, maybe names, or there's different ways to search for them, but maybe read the names out loud yourself. I know that the Rutgers group tries to find a picture of each person and tries to just humanize them in their story. And, whether they took their own life, whether they were murdered, we must remember, or else, we'll die and those people will be forgotten.
Yeah, it's so good. And it's interesting to me, too, that this is an issue that is not going away as much as Trump and the followers, MAGA, wanted to. I know I have 4 kids and they go to school and it's people come out as trans all the time in their classrooms. And, one of the things I've been learning from my kids is like, I hope, this is a hope. I think my kids' generation, this kind of stuff will stop. I'm hopeful of that. Because the way my kids talk about these sorts of topics and issues is way different than I talked about it as a kid.
Right.
And it's a healthier way. In some ways, I learned from them and how to talk about it.
Sure. Right.
Because they deal and they love and they're empathetic and they're still friends. They don't make fun of, they don't bully when somebody comes out. And so to me, that's kind of remarkable because I know when I was a kid that wasn't, the case. And so,
Yeah,
um, I guess if I see any hope, I see hope in that in my kids, and which is, I'm grateful for.
yeah, and that's again, it's an age old aphorism wisdom, but that children are our future and lead us in that direction.
Mhm.
They can if we would listen.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Well, that's all I had for today.
Yeah,
I thought keep it a little shorter.
we've got
First episode.
a lot ahead of us. So
Yeah, we'll see how this goes. Journey with us.
yeah,
But follow along. We'll be on all the platforms. We're working towards that. But I wanted to get this first one out there. And yeah, God bless. And we're always available if you need it.
absolutely.